What actually scares us in a horror film? Is it the monster on screen, or how the director manipulates the environment around that monster? Look at the animated short film, The Haunted Shelter. The story opens with a family scrambling through a violent storm, desperately outrunning a masked, heavily armed pursuer. The father, Rahul, is navigating blinding darkness, but he's also guiding two terrified children and physically supporting his pregnant wife who was doubled over in severe pain. By burdening the protagonist with extreme physical constraints right away, the film forces our empathy into overdrive. We feel the weight of these stakes before a single horror mechanic is ever deployed. The jungle chase is a chaotic sensory environment. The darkness is absolute, punctuated by sudden thunder, heavy driving rain, and the heavy sound of pursuing boots snapping twigs in the mud. This relentless auditory assault triggers an immediate and intense fight-or-flight response. The terrified characters are driven to run completely blindly toward the very first recognizable physical structure that they can possibly find. They burst through the doors of a decaying, abandoned church. In an instant, they transition from an exposed wilderness into a tight, confined structure. But escaping the storm does not provide safety. Instead, the walls of the church trap the family inside a psychological pressure cooker. The interior of the church offers no comfort. The production design uses stark blue and gray color grading to highlight moss-covered walls, thick dust, and broken windows that offer zero protection. Rahul immediately shifts from frantic flight to frantic defense. He drags heavy, rotting wooden benches and tables across the floor to barricade the broken doors. At the exact same time, Ria pulls the children down beneath the church's main altar, actively minimizing their physical footprint inside the room. Take a look at this animated blueprint of the church. This illustrates a concept called spatial compression. By barricading exits and hiding underneath furniture, the character's usable safe zone shrinks rapidly from the entire room down to just the tiny space beneath the altar. Highlighting the environmental decay while aggressively enforcing that spatial compression physically boxes the audience in right alongside the trapped characters. Then, the chaotic sounds of the heavy rain and the relentless pursuit completely drop away to pin-drop silence. This waveform chart shows ambient sound waves flatlining into silence. This is acoustic contrast. Silence here is an active tool to amplify anticipation. This sonic vacuum tricks human biology, forcing you to lean in, straining to hear, leaving you defenseless to the next noise. And that noise is a massive, violent impact. The killer strikes the barricaded door, and the sheer terrifying force of that sudden sound is multiplied exponentially by the silence that came right before it. Removing sound altogether is the director's most aggressive and effective weapon in manufacturing a true scare. The tension reaches its breaking point as the barricade splinters. A masked figure steps through the broken doorway, perfectly framed by a flash of lightning. The spatial trap has fully collapsed. Flight is impossible. Rahul must completely abandon his defensive posture. He lunges from the shadows, gripping a rusted iron rod. The animation slows down here, emphasizing the heavy, desperate reality of the struggle, as Rahul strikes the killer to the ground. A horror climax works precisely because it strips away all remaining spatial buffers, forcing a highly vulnerable protagonist into direct, inescapable conflict with the threat. Once the threat is neutralized, the environment immediately shifts. The rain ceases, and the oppressive, cold blue tones of the night dissolve into the warm, bright sunlight of dawn streaming through the broken glass. The audio track mirrors this shift. The violent banging and the suffocating silence are replaced by the distant, reassuring wail of approaching police sirens. This deliberate reversal of all the prior tension creates sensory catharsis. The film systematically unwinds the anxiety it built up over the previous scenes. Effective cinematic terror is an architectural formula built by carefully calibrating extreme physical vulnerability, intense spatial compression, and acoustic contrast. The Haunted Shelter ensures that the eventual sunrise feels profoundly earned.